welcome back. It's Sunday night, so it's time for Chris and Michael. It's our weekly Go analysis. And Michael, before we get started, looks like you got hold of a haircut there.
Oh yeah, it was annoying me, my hair.
I know, I am with you, brother. So did you do what I do, break down and get some clippers, or did you find a barber who could take care of it?
Well, actually, I got a barber. We're very close to everything opening up now in Japan. Like
Hmm.
most of the areas, apart from Tokyo and actually Hokkaido, have already been officially opened up. So they're out of the state of emergency, and the number of contagious people has gone down quite dramatically. So
Oh,
it's
wow.
looking good for the
That's
time being.
excellent.
Yeah.
I know, for the time being. So, all right, well, that's very good news. It's always good to see you. And a couple things before we get started. We've got another AlphaGo versus AlphaGo game. We are in the home stretch, folks. We're closing in quickly on the end of this 50 game series. I was looking back over just some of the streams we've done. It's pretty cool. Although I'm actually kind of excited to move on to the next batch of games too. So it
Sure.
is all good. Just a couple things to remind folks, we are here every Sunday, and we just passed a milestone. Stephen tells me we are now over 5,000 followers here on the Twitch channel. So
That's incredible.
kudos to you. That is very impressive. Apparently, we don't get a mug or a T-shirt. you know.
YouTubers, when they get some to a point like that, they get a plaque or something. Then
Yeah, what about a
we need
plaque?
a
We should get
plaque.
a
Yeah,
plaque. All right,
give us
Steven, see if you can work on getting us a plaque. Okay, that seems
a
reasonable.
little
All right.
Twitch logo on it or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, somebody I was talking to once, they had. Oh, I know. I've been doing a lot of Zooming, as I know you have as well. And one of my IT guys at work had a really cool Zoom T-shirt or sweatshirt, very nice Zoom sweatshirt. So maybe we could get a Twitch sweatshirt. I would wear that, right?
For Twitch, yeah.
We should get a Twitch AlphaGo sweatshirt. All right, we'll work on that. Get some swag going here. So that's number one. So congratulations, you all made that happen, and you can help us. I guess the next thing we'll go to set our sights high. Let's go for 10,000 followers. So spread the word if you like what you're seeing here. Spread the word, and let's go for 10,000. Also, just a reminder. If you don't catch all of this stream, it will be posted over onto our YouTube channel. Stephen will put up the link for that. I think we're at a couple of week lag at this point because we've got some other stuff that's going on as well. But they do all wind up there, so you can check those out at your leisure. Also, Stephen has been putting up some games from a tournament that happened a couple of months ago that you were also at, Michael, in Southeast Asia, I think it was.
In
So
Singapore.
he's Singapore, yeah. So he's been processing through those games and putting those up. So those are pretty cool games, and it's nice to see those. And the nice thing about a YouTube channel is that once they're there, they're just there forever, and so you can really go check them out at your convenience. Those come out on Tuesdays. And then these games, the Twitch broadcast, those are posted on Friday nights. So you can check those all out on the YouTube channel. And if you like all this stuff and want to support it, and we hope you do, Stephen will put up the link where you can make a contribution. Those are really, really appreciated. And of course, we can't forget Michael has been putting the pandemic to good use and has launched both. He's got himself on Twitter, which is a little scary, but he's actually been he's been using it well to put out lots of problems and cool stuff, and a YouTube channel as well. So he's become a multi-platform dude,
Yep. Yep.
having
That's
fun
right.
with it.
Hmm.
So check those all out, and Steve will put up the link for that as well. I think I haven't checked lately, but you were having quite a skyrocketing followership there on your YouTube channel. Kind of jumped up
I
a whole lot.
think past 2,000. Hoping
Woohoo!
more. Yeah.
All right, get a little thing going there. All right. So I think that's all the details that we needed to catch up on. Just a reminder, of course, we are live. So those of you who are watching now, I will be monitoring the chat. If you've got questions, just shoot them and we will try and get to them. I undoubtedly will call on your help from time to time when Michael tries to get break my brain when
Oh, okay.
asking
Okay.
what's
Yeah. Oh,
new.
yeah. Questions. Yeah, I have to ask you questions.
He always has questions for me, so stay tuned for that. All right, so we're into our sort of the final stretch on these AlphaGo games. What's the bottom line on this particular game?
Yeah, it's probably not so much life and death this time. It's just a lot of playing away when you wouldn't expect it and stuff like that. Like
Hmm.
dead-looking stones just left lying there and stuff like that. It's a bit
Hmm.
confusing that way. It doesn't really go to the life and death stage very much, but it's more strategic, you might say. Yeah.
Cool. Then I won't have any life and death problems to worry about. But I don't know. Sometimes
I'll do my best to find something for
all right.
you.
All right. Let's dive right in.
Okay. Starting with this opening, it's pretty normal so far. And white plays an approach move too. So this is the point where um, modern players or most computer programs would be starting playing moves like this, pressing on the fifth line, for instance. In fact, this is a quite common opening that would be played. Or white could counter with this, and we would get into some complications I've seen a lot of this in professional play. Right? It's just the fact that computer programs give such a high score to pressing on the fifth line on the 5-5 point here, the
Hmm.
5-4 point that is. They give this move such a high score that, for instance, if you let something like this happen, it's probably going to be a rise in black's score in the game. So white often will counter with this, and we get into some strange openings where stuff it looks sort of like mirror goal,
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
and it gets a bit weird when that happens. So in this game, black is not doing that. Black plays the kick. This is another, you might say, it's another AI move where black plays the kick. It's just heating up the right side. Um, we used to say that this has to be bad because it allows white to play a three-space extension from the two stone wall, which is ideal.
Hmm.
And it would be perfectly okay for white to play that on the third line too. Only people like to play on the fourth line now, mostly because of the computer programs that like to do it also. And it's a very subtle difference. Like the third line would be perfectly okay, and it would not, even if you're the type who worries about the computer score, it's probably not a big difference.
Hey, good question here from one of our viewers, and this is in line with what you were just talking about, which is, how often is it viable to play away during
Mm-hmm.
the opening? And his point is that
Play
there's
away
so
for
much.
yeah.
Yeah. It's tricky, right?
It's tricky. Usually you can play away. Like, it depends on whether you've invested something in that position. Like, for instance, this is an example of a position where it's almost always bad to play away. Because if white did so and black played something like that, white would have played these two stones
Hmm.
that are basically not doing much. Like black has a position where black has played a pincer in a fairly perfect point, and actually black got to choose the point. So like depending on the upper right corner, how the upper right corner is, maybe black would be choosing to play one space closer in some cases. If there's just the one star point as we have here, then playing three line extension, I mean the pincer here, would be fine. And it's just that white's two stones there, these two stones are not functioning to make any territory. And actually, if we went back a few moves and said that white had played this move, for instance, if white had just not done that and played away, and then black had played here, then white would be finding a different move. White would not be playing this move at this point.
I
So
say.
these are moves that where black has played a move that black might have played anyway. That's the low Chinese opening. And white has responded with a move that white did not want to play. So that's an example of tewari, you might say. It's the dosaku's way of looking at. Hoinbo dosaku invented that to look at positions like that. And just to point out what computer programs might be playing, if black plays the low Chinese, computer programs could play this kakari in the upper right. That's actually a move that humans played before, and computer programs still give a good score to.
Mm.
Or you could jump into the 3-3 point, which would be a very computer-like move. Or what you see a lot, if you look just at the lower right corner, you see white playing the attachment here.
Right.
And that sort of depends on the ladder, which is still favoring white in this case. So the ladder I'm talking about is this one where black cuts. And if black connects here, the ladder has to favor white. And this ladder is going to go diagonal, and it's going to curve in here, and white's going to capture it. It's going to eventually hit that 3-4 point.
I love it. That's great.
But actually, this is still playable for black, provided black does play one Atari on the third line. So this would actually be something that could happen. Like if white plays down here, then we should get into something like this, which gives black a fairly good position on the right. This is probably about even. But I would be happy to play this with black. Otherwise, if white cuts in the corner, this is actually not as good as one might expect, because this is a point where white has a difficult choice. For instance, if white plays down, I could give you this problem. What's the tesuji for black to attack this white group?
Oh, wow.
This would be a tesuji problem. It's not really a life and death thing.
Right.
But it's a bit tricky. There's two ways to go about it.
I mean, it's either the Kasumi or the straight extension, right?
Yeah, it's one of those two. Actually, both of them arguably are correct. But the problem with this is that it sort of involves a ladder.
Right.
When this happens and this happens, and white covers on the second line, black plays there. Now, if the ladder favors black, this ladder, which unfortunately for black in this position, it doesn't favor black.
Right, right.
So that would be bad. But if it did favor black, it would be a collapse for white, because white would have to play on that. White would have to play on the outside, and black would be able to capture the 3 stones. But even if black cannot do that, playing the diagonal move is good enough, because this would, like if white plays here, this would just be a dead shape. So black could even immediately cut here, and it would be an attack on white. Or black could, or white could play here. This would be it would be possible for white to live, but even if black just played like this, it would just be a very good position for black on the right side with that captured stone, and this would be good enough for black. And to go a few moves back, we could say that white's probably going to capture the 1 stone with either this move or this move. This might be better for white, but in either case, it's still you can still see that this black stone here is in a very good position, making it very tight for white. White will, if white plays locally, white will have to play something like this. So that's not so good for white. Or otherwise, if white plays away, it is this is a dead shape. Like this point and this point, they're interchangeable. So white's already dead. It's going to be troublesome for white.
Yeah.
So on the whole, this is actually playable for black, but I sort of digressed here. What I meant to say was that if black does play this move, then the local move, which I would argue white might not play it yet, but the local move might be looking more like something like this, or at least white would play a high approach, which is still feasible. This is still something that white could do, but white would probably not play the low approach. Excuse me, the low approach here. It looks like a very heavy and not so good move. So once white has played this, it is good for white to continue with a local move here. So that was kind of a long answer to your question, but it is sometimes it's hard to judge. Usually you want to continue playing until the local move is not so urgent anymore.
Right. I think, it's a question that as, Go players get stronger, right? I mean, when you first start, you just respond to everything because it's all about fighting and engaging and all of that. And as you get stronger, you begin to at least consider, and I think it's correct to say that you should always consider, you should never just respond, even something I mean, obviously, if it's a rare, I mean, not even obviously. Sometimes, I remember a game you showed us a couple of months ago. My favorite games, in recent history was, the game when you just kept giving stuff away, larger and
Oh, yeah.
larger
Blanket.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
so I think part of the answer to our viewers' question is, I mean, obviously you have a right to Tanuki whenever you want, and it is something you should maybe be thinking about. But what I think your long answer, is that it's complicated. You can't just say you can Tanuki at will because there may be if you Tanuki, there may be a cost to pay.
Yes, and we've always said that pros tend to be better at playing away than
Sure.
amateur players. And so as you get stronger, your ability to play away and deal with it when you do get in local trouble gets better. And we've seen computer programs, which are superhuman now, play away in cases where even a human professional, would want to play a local move. So you can see it still progresses. I think it progresses beyond human ability because we're seeing computer programs play away in positions where we would sort of want to continue playing.
But it gives us the same thing. It gives us a thought, maybe we could do that as well. Something at least worth thinking about.
You have to have a plan for what happens afterwards.
Right. Okay.
So
All right. Good question. Thanks for the question.
Yeah. So black plays here. It's very much looking like AlphaGo here. It's again, a point where I would be thinking of pressing here. This would still be a good move. And there would be a human tendency for me to want to do something with the left side of the board. So for instance, I would be, one image I might get would be something like this on the left side of the board. But AlphaGo just jumps into the 3-3 point. And so a pincer. I guess it could be called a pincer. An extension on the side.
But can I just ask you about that? I mean, for usual, human play, that black stone in the upper left corner just looks very lonely.
Oh, it still has plenty of space. Like the way white has pincered it, black still has room to extend here. And so that's the kind of pattern we're going to see in the game. The real question is what happens if white had played a stronger attack? Like, let's see. If white plays here, for instance, black gets to extend. Now, the left side actually is pretty big because this would be setting up an attack on white's wall here in the lower left area. So, like, if white extends here, that would finish the Joseki, but black would have a perfect position on the left side of the board. So you could say this is what white was avoiding, this kind of opening, which would probably be okay for black. But the other question is, why does white play so far away from black's stone? So like, for instance, white could play something like this, which would be much more a strong attack. And the problem is that after playing this, maybe black will be playing somewhere in between the two, the white wall and that white pincer stone. And this wall here can be attacked. Like the fact that there's a cutting point on the fourth line here means that black does have potential to attack here. And we've actually seen this pattern in a number of AlphaGo games. But with this strong black group in the lower right area, it means that when black does cut at the mark point, it's going to be a very strong attack against white. So invading on the lower side, on the left side, is a real threat, which it shows. I think that sort of demonstrates why white was sort of holding back here and playing a more conservative extension.
Mm-hmm.
Because I would have also been thinking about moves like, at least this far, I would like to prevent black from playing an extension on the side. So I would be thinking of moves like this or the stronger pincer here. Somewhere on the third line would be where I would like to play. The issue being that black will be able to invade, to counterattack here. So this is a very cautious move white has played, and black has any number of ways to deal with it. Like black could have played this way. This is sort of what, this is the move that's in fad. It's the move that computer programs like to play so much. after AlphaGo. And let's see. This could get very exciting, actually. I made a number of, let's just follow the variations I was making. Something like this could happen. This actually looks playable for white. White will be able to enclose black, and black will be able to live maybe on the second line. Black could continue with something like this, for instance. And it doesn't look like it's going to be a complete disaster. But I would be comfortable enough with white. Otherwise, white could play here immediately. There's a number of fights that could happen from this. But it was very interesting that AlphaGo did not play that pressing move on the E16 point. I'm talking about this stone here. This is the move that we've sort of been conditioned to think of first, because programs like Leela, Katabo will be giving this move a very high score. But AlphaGo didn't choose that move in this case. So AlphaGo plays here, which is a very human-looking Joseki. It's something that we played for several decades before computer programs came. A very popular move, like if white plays something like, for instance, if white plays here, black will probably continue with this. Something like this, for instance. And this would be a fight, but it would be playable for black, I think. This kind of fight. There is always the counterattack of black playing here, putting some pressure on white in the corner. So this is the basic idea behind black's pincer there, kind of a counter pincer move. And in the game, AlphaGo actually played away once, and then, okay, here I made this variation. Let's see what I did with this variation. Very similar, isn't it? So it's something like this could easily happen. And white will probably kick this kind of fight. It actually looks quite playable for black. This is actually an interesting, we get into a semi-eye here. I actually took this a bit further. At this point, this ends the variation that I made, but it gets really interesting if white continues here. What would you say would happen if white cut here, played an Atari, and cut again here? Note that the ladder favors white. I'll make this move given. So white plays here, and black would like to capture in a ladder, but the ladder is not going to work. The ladder favors white.
Man, that I was just trying to read that out, but the shape is so clunky, right?
Mm-hmm. The white shape is clunky.
Oh my God! But it's okay, right?
It's not okay, but the way it's not okay is sort of hard to find sometimes. So there's a black move that is the Tetsuji, that if you're a strong player, maybe you know it. And then it actually works.
Well, H11, the net usually works, but I'm assuming there's a problem with that.
You mean this net? This net? This net doesn't, this is an Atari. White breaks out.
Oh, I was thinking that, nope, I missaw it. Yep, that's too easy. All right, so that's definitely not working.
There's a different net that works slightly better.
How about a clever move like H10?
H10 is the Tetsuji. Now,
cool.
Is it? Well, it's sort of nuanced because it's a Tetsuji, but it's not the best move.
Oh, Stephen is laughing at me. He says it's too easy, but Stephen is like 10 down amateur or something. So
okay, so this is the Tetsuji, but and the point is that if white plays an Atari here, locally it is a geta shape. This is a net. If white tries to break out, if white tries to break out, it would be this move. This is going to be a ladder in a different direction. So if black takes the ladder this way, it's just like the one before that didn't work, and it's going to hit this white stone. Black has the option of taking a ladder in a different direction, like this, and this ladder obviously is going to work. So this would be bad for white. However, going back to this point, white can actually play this Atari, and now white has a way to capture. White has 3 liberties, and white cannot get out. but white has a way to capture black on the left side. So why don't you try to find that one?
Okay, well, I'm doing that. Steven, is that your phone? Because Steven thinks it's somebody's phone.
I just turned it off. I disconnected my phone. Sorry about that.
That's all right. This looks a little. So wait, white's looking for a way out, right?
That was my Twitter account buzzing a little bit because I put out a Go problem.
It's good. It's a good thing.
So white has three keys.
Ooh. Oh, I suppose. Man, if you just try and go straight up, that doesn't work. You're saying that the white has a way out here, right?
White has a way to win the fight, the race to capture.
Oh. How about? Oh, what about this? The wedge at D13. Yeah, Corky61 likes that too. Does D13 does that maybe a Tsuji like looking thing?
It looks like a Tsuji.
Right, and then C13.
Mm-hmm. C13 is a black stone. Maybe you're talking about C14.
Sorry, 14. Yes, 14. Yeah, that's what I meant. Sorry.
So that's the correct answer. And if black plays here, you can see already white is winning by one move.
That's so cool.
Otherwise, black would like to think of extending here, but white's just going to. If white connects now, this would be trouble. Black would get an extra liberty, but white can just continue playing Ataris. And so it doesn't work. So this is actually even worse for black. So black's correct move is actually going back to this point. Black's correct move would be to take the one stone and have two liberties at this point. Black loses by one move, but does get a squeeze from the outside, sort of. Right. So this would be close to even, but it's actually not, since black does lose that big territory on the left side of the board, it's not black's optimum choice. It's not the best way for black to play. And we have to go back to this point where white has that clunky shape. Actually, it's better for black to play on this side. Extending liberties, because otherwise black lost the semi. So now white's going to play like this, and black can play here to get a living shape. So after this, black can jump into the corner with a one space jump there, or capture the one stone. So wow. I guess maybe white could play here, something like this. White would be able to capture black 5 stones on the outside, but black would get to close off the side here. Sorry, not that way. Something like this. And I guess black would continue with an invasion on the right side. On the whole, this looks perfectly fine for black. Black's got actually gained a lot of territory on the left side, reducing the corner. So the corner is about the same size as black's territory on the side. And it's just that one territory that white has in this area. So this is the only territory white has left. And you can see that black does have a lot of potential on the upper side. Black still has these 2 territories in the 2 lower side corners. This is actually clearly better for black. It's clearly good for black. While that other variation where black played that nice little Tsuji there and squeezed from the outside eventually, although this looked really good, it's not as good as the other variation. Because black does lose the semi. Losing points is actually pretty important.
That's some high level analysis there.
Okay, so I'm trying to get back to the game variation where I was. I got a bit lost there. Too far ahead in variations. So white played away once and played against the black stone. So we were, just to remind you, we were looking at this variation, which is the most normal move. And I got a bit carried away by taking it something like 30, 40 moves ahead. But yeah, this is the move that white played. I think the idea is that if black, in the game, black played a hane underneath. So if black plays a hane on the outside, white's probably going to play here with a cutting point here and a hane here and the slide here. This is just better for white than playing. It's a more forceful move, you might say, than the other way.
Mm-hmm.
And black played a hane underneath, and white extended. So this was a turning point where I think it might have been better for white to pull back, and something like this could happen. So this is the variation that I expected. And white needed that move at 9 to get rid of, like if white plays on this side, there is this problem here for white. So white plays at 9 and something like this. This would be about even. White does have an attack on the upper side with probably the shoulder hit. So the fight will continue. It looks about even.
Yeah.
So white extended here. Black pushed. White extended. This seems a very natural sequence here, but black does have enough room on the left side to make a living shape. So I sort of like this for black.
Yeah, this is great.
And again, white's taking away black's base to a certain extent, very natural continuation. And white plays here.
Right.
It's interesting to note that when white does have this shape in the corner, usually starting with the star point, it's actually good for white to play the empty triangle shape here. As far as white's eyes are concerned, when white plays this empty triangle, we're sort of heading to a shape where white is going to end up with stones at these 2 points, and it's going to have the carpenter's square shape, which is probably hated by weaker players because it's so difficult to figure it out.
All right, we are back. Thanks for your patience. Sorry about that, but hey, it's the internet. What can I tell you? Stuff happens. Michael's back. He is live. And I do, however, in addition to chatting with you guys, I got a very sad text here. Some of you may remember Gordon Costanza is a longtime Go player. And actually, I got to know him really well. He was part of the e-journal team for many years. He was actually a really good game recorder. And I just got a text that he just died, not from COVID-19. He had a battle with lung cancer. So to folks who knew Gordon, some sad news. We'll have a story in the e-journal, and I'll find out about I mean, obviously, with all the things that are going on now, I have no idea what's going to go on with the memorial service. But anyhow, very sorry to hear that Gordon was a good man and a good Go player. All right. So, Michael, I think we were just doing that whole thing in the corner, and I think we can pick up with where you are, right?
Okay. The present situation is that black is not alive. White does have a peep here that white can play at any point in Sente. So there's no way for black to make 2 eyes on the side. And white is, for the time being, alive in the corner for all practical purposes. So white is attacking black, and obviously black is not going to die, but the object of white's attack is to set up an attack on the upper side. So sure. This is where white, actually white played this first. So white plays here. This is still a position where white had to be worried about the cut here. So in this case, white did not have the leisure to just extend, because if white spent 1 stone here, then black would be playing something on the upper side. Maybe, I don't even know, maybe something like this, just looking at the cutting point here. And an extra stone on the upper side would be making a big difference, obviously. So white plays the double hane. Locally, this is a loss, but white does get the Sente to play here. So this is a light invasion. It would have been more exciting if white had done something like this. This is a key point, a vital point, you might say. This is the point where white would play if white was really going for erasing the whole territory. And something like this, it's not going to die. But there is the problem that black would be on the attack here and would be eventually setting up an attack on the right side too. So it would be getting very busy for white in the whole board position. That group on the upper side in itself would probably not die, but it would be making the game very difficult for white on the whole. So white, after playing this, white played the light. invasion. And if black just plays normally like this, you can see black is going to gradually be getting into trouble on the upper side. So black actually played a very unusual move here. Black just ignored the shoulder hit and made a living shape here. So this has settled this black group. A nice little territory there. And white plays this. So this was a pretty important move also. Once white has played the double hane, if white allows black to play this point, like another big move would be to add a stone to the right side. For instance, something like this. And playing here would be a huge move for black. It would just be, the cut here would have been a bad exchange for this black stone. Locally, it's just very bad for white. So it's a big move. And usually black will answer it. But at this point, black actually played away. This was a bit of a surprise. Usually you would see black playing here. Perfectly reasonable. But then white would leave it at this point. But instead, black started a fight on the right side. So this is where the game gets a bit more exciting.
Wow.
And black kicks once. And then jumps out here. So black has split the white group on the right, this group, from this stone. So it's a splitting attack. It's really hard to see who's attacking who.
I was just going to say, what is going on here? I'm having a hard time keeping track.
It's just that shoulder hit. Let's leave a mark on the shoulder hit. That shoulder hit, it did sort of heat things up a little bit. And the fact that black also invaded on the right side here. It's heating up a little bit. And white plays, this is a very natural shape move.
Yeah.
And white is looking at the weak point here where white can push through. White can push through in between the two black stones. So a very natural move for black would be to add a stone to the upper side. In fact, I would tend to want to play this move, which would surround the upper side. White might continue with something like this, and white would get the right side too. It would be an even trade. But black was somehow not satisfied with that. And this was a move that was very hard for me to find. I would never think of playing here. It's a move that black is playing from a relatively strong group. And it doesn't look like there's so much potential for black to expand here. But it turns out black is looking at a weakness on the right side, which we're going to see.
I was just thinking there's a little bit of there's some play on the right side.
There's some play on the right side, which is sort of being set up by this move. The most straightforward play would be to play here. I think white might counter with this move. Something like this. White's idea is just to get a loose connection there to the upper side. And this would be sort of the expected variation. This is what I would play with either side. I would expect. So black is sort of throwing a curveball here by playing in a point that's doesn't seem to be so urgent. But black is going to try to find a stronger move than just pushing out here. The point is that black thinks he has a stronger move on the right side. And this is the move that black was looking at. So you can see white continued in the upper right corner. Black just plays away. So this is where it gets a bit crazy and computer-like, where black is playing away. Naturally, you would expect black to be playing something like this to answer white's move. And a local variation would be the Tetsuji, where white sets up the cover on the third line and can easily escape with those stones. So white was just setting up this local sequence, which is pretty straightforward for both sides. And the one move that is a bit interesting would be the attachment here. White is just with this attachment, white is just creating some momentum, you might say. Just allowing black to counterattack, but getting this extra forcing move, which does make it easier for white to set up a position on the outside like this. It looks fairly reasonable for both sides, as far as I'm concerned. This is what I would sort of expect to happen. But when white pushed through here, black played away. So already this is something that would be sort of difficult for me to be finding. And white counters with the strongest move. White played on top, where white could have played under. This would be the relatively safe move. And black would play a double hane. White would connect on the outside. And black doesn't really have, like if black plays something like this, it would be pretty pointless. Like black would not be gaining very much in this exchange. So black will probably not do that, but extend down. But even in this case, it doesn't really look white. This is playable for white too. Black would just be reducing the right side to a certain degree, and eventually black would be playing a move here to expand the lower side. So black does have in this area to get a big territory. So that would be black's plan. It would be a close game too. At this point, it's just all I can say is it's going to be close.
Wow.
But of course, that always happens with AlphaGo.
Of course.
Yeah. So we get into this fight. And now it's really confusing because in the game, black played what looked like a relatively safe move, this one. And white also eventually pulled back. But there, in the process here, it looks a bit dangerous for both sides. So just going back a few moves, like there's the question, what happens if black plays here? And white's going to cut here. And if black plays here, then white can actually set up the wedge here. And it looks like it's going to be trouble for black. Obviously, if black plays here, it's a double Atari. If black plays in between, it's a double Atari. So if black plays on this side, this is going to be trouble for black in the corner. Like it, and there's the cut here. Like this is just, it's not gonna work. White, if black sacrifices the two stones, white's gonna have enough room to live, just like this. So this would be bad for black with that weak group on the right side. Otherwise, let's see. When white plays here, actually black could play something like this, which would make it more difficult for white to live. Like if this happens, and let's see, something like, I guess black would play here. In this case, black could counter with this stone. And everything would be connected up and white would not have room to live. You can see how this stone here is making it a bit difficult for white. So there's a lot of possible variations here. Turns out that white would probably just sacrifice. In this case, white would be able to sacrifice the stones with something like this. And it wouldn't be so good for black because there is that big move in the upper right. And in this case, you can say that white has sacrificed the three stones on a fairly small scale. So I think this is good for white. So black played here, and then white sort of is still sort of encouraging black to try something here, because if black plays here, it's a different fight again. But this is also, white still has this move. It's still an issue, because if black plays this one, then black is okay on the left there, but white does have this move. In this case, if we get into a race to capture, white's probably going to win the race to capture. And black has to be very careful here because white's already, in this case, white's already alive.
Right, right.
So it is a very difficult position where if black wanted to continue fighting here, black would have to be finding a move something like this, and black would be very short of liberties. Like you would have, if we have black trying to kill white, it would be this kind of thing, and it's just not gonna. Black doesn't have enough outside liberties. Like black has something like 4 liberties against white's 6 liberties in this case.
Wow, really, really short.
Yeah. So to go back here, black does answer here, and white finally connects. And this black group is not alive. So black has these 2 groups that locally they're not alive yet. So there's this group and this group. Both of them are not locally alive. The group on the left is out in the center, so for the time being, it should be okay. And of course, that upper right corner is in between. So a lot of undecided stuff happening here. It looks like a nice little attack for white, but you have to remember that white does not have so much in the ways of solid territory. So that's the argument for saying that black has a good position. So with this, the group on the right is conditionally alive. Basically, black is sort of depending on forcing moves such as this one, and black has a forcing move here. So if black ignores the upper right corner, then black can play these forcing moves from this side and is perfectly alive. And that means that for the time being, white has to worry about this group. You have to remember that this group is not alive. Not alive yet. Yeah. So white starts with the peep. If black connects, that would be bad because white would just push through and cut. So that's something that black cannot do. And so black covers here. White does get some extra profit, but has to jump out. And now white is reinforcing that white group. And black could continue here. Locally, I would expect white just to play here and then maybe start attacking in the center. So that was the idea, but black first plays here. It looks like a very passive move, but actually there is a threat here. White plays this way, black connects, and you would think, obviously, white is going to play something like this, right? White has a choice between, well, like this, I guess this would also be an option. Something in the upper right corner would be so huge. The point is that when black gets to play this peep, and that's why black connected here. Black wanted to play this peep. This will give black what looks like a living shape on the right side. And that means that black can continue with something like this to get a very strong attack on white. So that was the point of this move that black played, connecting up in the center. Black was building a wall there to set up this attack against white on the right side. So I guess it makes sense that white now plays this move. When white plays here, this group is probably going to be alive. White does have the potential eye on the right side here. So half an eye here. And just the fact that this black group in the lower right area it's not all that strong. There is some weakness to it also. It looks like white can survive here. Obviously, this is a position which would be sort of uncomfortable for human players too. But this half eye that I'm talking about on the right side, in many cases, it can be changed into a real eye. Like, for instance, if white plays here, this would lose territory locally. But in order for black to be alive, black has to play here, in which case white can play like this and cover it with sente. So this would make it into a real eye with sente. So white would have one eye there. So in some cases, white has an eye there. You have to remember that it does lose some territory, so it's not something that white's going to be in a hurry to do. But it was sort of interesting that this connection, setting up the peep here, is actually setting up an attack against white in the lower right area. So white protects there, and black gets to connect underneath. And finally, it seems to be settling down a little bit.
Nice.
Black plays here. You can see black is sort of eyeing the cut here. White plays here. And do you see how this move is working?
Oh, nice.
And black pushes through. This is not so difficult, actually. Quite straightforward.
I assume just cut, right?
Yeah, it was not a trick question, Quiz.
Yeah. No, it's like between you and AlphaGo, I'm always suspicious. You know?
So this would just be
I want to make sure that it works.
Yeah. So this is actually a test strategy that is worth remembering. In this position, it's either this move, or actually this move is also quite often a very good move. In fact, you can probably find this shape in Kanzufu, the Endgame and Sumego collection from ancient China.
Yeah.
I believe I've seen this kind of sequence in that also, where white can put pressure on the black group and force black to put a stone in. So this would be another sequence that white could have used. And it's hard to say which is actually objectively better. In this case, black has to pull back, allow white to connect underneath, but black is alive in the corner. And usually you would expect black to play that final move here, but when black has that hane here on the first line, it means that the attachment here is not going to work. Black just has enough room to be alive in the corner. So, like, even assuming that white had a stone somewhere around here to protect the connection, the best white could get would be a seki. So this would be a live shape for black. So this is obviously, if this black stone was not already played, if black did not have that black stone, then it would be a completely different story, and black would be in trouble in the corner. But since black does have that stone, it's correct for black to play the diagonal move here. And white is connecting up in the center. Actually, white was not connecting up in the center, but it's good enough. At this point, white is dealing with a slight weakness in the connection in the center here, this position here. Like there's the peep here and stuff like that. And also dealing with this group in the upper right, which is, it's not clear whether it's alive yet, so white is fixing that. So black plays here, white plays here. Black was threatening a wedge at this point. So white had to deal, also there's the peep here, so white was dealing with both of those threats. And, okay, so this is an important point here. So at this point, white can capture one stone, or if black captures here, something like this happens. Actually, I did that in the wrong order. Let's go back. Let's say white plays this one first. It's probably better to play this first. And white cuts with sente, and this is going to be a forcing move against the corner. So there's no problem for white. White can easily live here. So white has two eyes there if black cuts white and tries to attack.
Wow.
And so black plays here. So what is black trying to do? Black actually has a very strong attack against white here. If white plays here, the idea is that black is going to cut once and extend and play this. You can see that black is strengthening the black group, but also black has this extension here, which is quite troublesome. So if white plays from the center, black will continue here, and it is a bit of trouble for white. You have to remember that there's this group on the right, which is not 100% alive. So white wants to play. White wants to avoid any complications in the center. So ideally, it would be a win for white when white plays here. But when this is going to be something like a ko, I believe. For instance, something like this happens. At the present time, black has 6 moves left. And this is a key point. This is a key point. It's if white can get a 4-point shape. For instance, if white can get something like this 4-point shape, although it's 4 points, white has 5 liberties in this corner. I mean on the side. White has 5 liberties there. That 4-point shape is a 5 liberty shape, which means in this case white would be winning by 1 move. You can count black's liberties now to see that black has 5, or when white plays a move, now black has only 4. So to show how that 5 liberty thing works, it turns out that white gains a move here, and now still has an extra liberty to win by one move.
Nice, 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 nice.
So what happens is that when white does that, black is going to play a hane here and create a ko-like position. So this is going to be a direct ko, for instance, like this. So it's going to be a ko. And that would be bad for white. That would be a disaster. That was a white territory to start with. So white counters. Geez, I got to way ahead. Okay, so white counters with this. And black answers here. So this strange shape is actually threatening to cut white off at this point. So that would cut white off in the center. If white plays here, that's just white's dead now. The white group in the center cannot be saved. So white answers this way, and black gets to push through. So black got something extra there. And this was just threatening white next. Like if black cuts here, white is going to answer this way. And it's the same story as before. White can easily live on the side because black has to locally answer that. And white can live like this. So that's no problem for white. So black just takes the one stone. And the point is that this stone is a meaningful stone. So there was really no point for black to start with the cut because white wants to play here anyway. And the meaning of that is that white is setting up something here. So black plays this way. What white is setting up is that white is setting up the cut here. White can cut black off there, and that would be that would kill the black group on the left side. So black continues with this, and this is a very a special move that gets rid of that threat. So like if black had played this way, locally it's a reasonably good move, but it doesn't stop white from cutting black here. So in the game, black plays here. Now if white answers this way, black is just going to connect here. And you can see that if white continues with this, now white's going to be in trouble with the wedge here. So it's preventing white from doing that cutting maneuver.
Wow.
In the game, white plays here, black plays here. So black got to play this move. This is an important move that makes eye space for the whole black group. So now black has something that looks like two eyes, two spaces that black is surrounded. And white cannot cut, because if white tries to cut here, white's going to lose. Well, even if black just plays here and fills a liberty, white's going to lose that group.
So, Michael, an interesting thing about this part of the game is, as you were saying just a little while ago, I mean, things are sort of settling down, but I think it's a part of the game where folks can kind of, maybe ease up just a little bit. I mean, nothing really is, at stake immediately for life and death. The territories have been sort of sketched out, and there is that sort of feeling of relaxing a little bit. But as you're showing here, there's actually a lot of stuff going on. I mean, admittedly, it's AlphaGo versus AlphaGo, but this would be true even in a human versus human game, yeah?
In a human game, too. The point is that this black group and this white group, they're both not 100% alive.
Right.
And both groups are not in immediate danger either. So it's just a question of how efficiently each side can settle these groups, because the territory is going to be very close now. It's going to be a very close game. And so the players have to find useful moves at the same time as saving their groups. It has to be a double purpose move every time. And this would be true in a human pro game also. It would be a question of finding the most efficient moves here.
Well, what I often
so you don't get killed. Yeah.
Well, what I often see in amateur games, particularly, is that folks kind of, this is a part of the game where folks can kind of lose track, and a group will suddenly start getting attacked, and it won't die, but they'll lose points, and maybe not even a huge number of points. But I mean, if it's a close game and you lose 10, 15 points, that's the game. That's the game.
Well, in this game, at this level, like it's
Oh
super
yeah,
level. It's just 2 points would make a difference.
which is really what's going on here, right? I mean, it's really they're really fighting over a very small number of points.
But even in a human game, and assuming the fact that we would be in time trouble, there would be the main issue basically is the fact that this white group it only has one eye that is secure.
Mm-hmm.
So where's the other eye? In actual practice, white should have no problem with the peep here, and moves like this would be threatening black's connection. So white does have some stuff there that white can do to counterattack if black really tries to attack. So it is more of a question of how much of this area on the lower side black can get. So this area on the lower side is actually very important.
Right.
It's the last battle area. So white played,
part of this is if black can seal that off and attacking white, that's and exactly right. There goes white.
Right. Yeah. And so black is not only protecting the black group by making eye space here. Black is also building a base to attack white on the right. Because white actually has two choices here. And the other choice for white would be to play this huge move in the lower right corner. I mean, lower left corner, that is. Well, this is a huge move. It's something like 20 points. But black would probably continue with an attack. Maybe something like this. This would be more than an attack. It would be basically just building the lower side on the largest scale. This would probably be good enough for black, just to surround the lower side on the fifth line like this, fifth and fourth lines. And white cannot really do anything about it when white does have that weak group on the right side.
Mm-hmm.
So this actually is a bigger move. So it makes sense that that white played this way. And now black has to play this move, so it's sort of forced. Both were extremely big move. So where would you play with black now? This could be a nice little problem.
All right, folks.
So we do want to focus on the lower, still want to focus on the lower half of the board.
Right. I got that. I figured that. All right, folks. Lower part of the board, black to move. That is a tough problem. Yeah, M5. M5's being suggested. I don't know if I'm crazy about that. I don't know that has a huge amount of follow-up. Yeah, I mean, black's alive on the lower right, so I don't know, Michael. I mean, this is a really tough position. It must be because that's the only suggestion I've seen so far is M5. Usually people are jumping with all kinds of ideas.
Maybe I should. Okay, I think I can take it from there. You've spelled out the position very well, actually.
Oh.
But you did miss the point that the big territory move is this one in the lower left corner. The cut in the lower left corner is the big move.
That's huge.
So the question in my mind is, what if black plays here? This would be the immediate question that I would have.
Well, white has that follow-up at something like, I don't know, M2 or something scary like that.
Oh, yeah. White would push through here and peep. And
right.
Here. Right. White has to connect to the corner to take away black's eyes. And this is actually very dangerous for black.
Yeah.
Black could have played this move earlier, but at this point it's going to be too late because white will play here. And it's going to be a fight to capture, a race to capture, but white's going to win with the squeeze in the corner here. So this would be white would fairly easily, I think, win it. Well, yeah, it could be this is actually maybe a one move difference. But like when black starts doing stuff like this and like this, you can see that black's not going to be able to play this point immediately because of the cut on the third line. So black's going to have to back up there once. So it might be actually more than a one move difference. What I'm saying is if black plays here, white can cut on the third line.
Yeah.
So in this case...
Right. That doesn't work. Yeah.
So
So it's a little bit.
white can actually fill this liberty in the corner, and black is one move away from being put in Atari. You can see at this point, black has no way to fill a white liberty. And actually, even if black had a stone here, black would still have no good move, because if black plays, white could play away.
That's
and
annoying.
It would still be a win for white, because if black plays here, this is going to be an eye for no eye. So it's a mei menas yusei. White has an eye, black has no eye. If black plays underneath here, if black, and then white would just still, so it's actually a two move difference there. Okay, so black answered, actually it was not M5, but it was M4. So the basic meaning is quite similar. And black is looking at a kind of a cut there. So let's see.
Well, that's what I was wondering. The attachment at like K was it K5?
K5 or 5, one of those two.
Yeah.
So white protected this way, and black did get to cut in the corner. And so this is where it looks like black has a lead in territory, actually. And it's really crazy. It's going to be a fighting endgame. So they start with this ko. And while this looks really dangerous, it turns out white has enough ko threats to make it work. So white's fighting this ko. And black is not so serious about trying to win the ko, you can see. But they're just continuing playing endgame moves while they fight this ko in the corner. And you can see how this stone that M4 that black played is making a difference. For instance, if we had white play this way, this would be threatening to clamp and capture the one stone. So it would make mei of that point and capturing in the corner. So capturing here would give black a living shape.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how that move worked to give black a living shape. And so this happened. Black does have an eye here. Black already has an eye here.
Mm-hmm.
So a move here would make an eye in the corner, and a move here would make an eye on the side. So it's one of those 2 points. So all these little, and of course they're playing the best moves as far as territory is concerned at the same time. So it's all these little reading of potential.
It's a nice end game game.
It's an end game with that ko hanging in the lower left corner. It's just a ko that black cannot really win. Sort of crazy end game. White gets a bit crazy here. This move I like this move. It's going to connect up to one side or the other. Like if black plays on this side, white can play here and connect up. If black covers on the first line, that's going to be a ko. So that would be bad for black. In fact, white even has a kind of a forcing move on this side too, so it would be even worse than it looks. So black plays here, and black's perfectly okay. So like if white plays this move, this might look dangerous, but black can just allow white to do that. And you can see that white's not going to be able to save everything. So this was the right way to, this is a point where
sweet. That's nice.
In overtime, it's a point where it would be relatively easy for some players to make mistakes.
Mm.
But you can see that black is sort of trying to give up the ko, and white is sort of refusing to finish it off. But white ends up finishing the ko, and it's just, the rest of it is endgame. And white's still doing this crazy stuff. White's going to start a ko there. Not really any loss or gain. White's going to start yet another ko. And all of this stuff, like this ko that they're starting here, in the end it was the same result as far as I could tell. It's no loss or profit for either side. When you compare it to white not doing that, make some normal endgame move. They're going to fight this ko, and white's not going to have enough ko threats to win it, actually. And again, AlphaGo is doing this crazy stuff that it sometimes does with ko's. It's not, strictly speaking, it's not playing the correct variation. But again, I could not find a way to find a losing move or anything like that. And they're finally finishing the game. So this is going to be I think it's a half point for black. Actually, it's a half point. And again, this crazy endgame move that is pretty meaningless, but it doesn't lose anything. Forcing black to put a stone in on the left side, same result. And they finish the game. So black won. In Japan, that would be a half point, and it's a 3/4 of a stone. So it's the same thing.
A lovely game.
Yeah, it was a very human-like game in some ways.
I was going to say, yeah. I mean, it has
end games where we are trying to play the most efficient moves while dealing with groups we're not so certain about. The large end game moves, the way they were played, is sort of similar to issues that we have in human games, also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and except for that bit where, all of a sudden there's all kinds of things going on with the sort of the weird tanukis and so forth, it actually more or less made sense, or maybe we've just been spending so much time with these games that we're kind of getting into AlphaGo thing. But
it was pretty logical, I think, that it was, I could find reasons for every time that, for instance, like that time that black played that jump in the center, this one. And black was actually aiming to attack this white group next.
Sure.
So it did make sense. It was pretty reasonable. Although it did take me by surprise. I was sort of expecting black to be playing in the upper right corner. So it did take me by surprise. But the fact that black had that continuation of being able to attack white on the right side, like this variation that I was showing you. When I figured it out, it was perfectly logical. So that was the unusual part for AlphaGo games, actually. It's usually so pretty opaque and hard to understand sometimes.
Yeah, well, we'll when we get to the AG0 games, we'll have plenty of that. I remember those games. They made my head hurt. So we have that to look forward to. Well, as always, Michael, great commentary. This is a fun game. I always love games, whether they're human games or whatever, where they're really, really close. That's a fun game. It's one of those when you're playing, you really never mind even losing a really close game like that, because it could have gone either way. It's nice as opposed to just, at least for me, dying terribly somewhere.
Yeah, that's usually more painful.
It's more painful.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, listen, great commentary. Hope everybody enjoyed that. Those of you here in the States, it's a bit of an odd Memorial Day weekend, but still a 3-day weekend. So you still have all of tomorrow, although I don't quite, when so many of us are not working or working remotely, it's all sort of strange, but is what it is. We will be back next Sunday. And again, check out our YouTube channel. Check out Michael's YouTube channel. He's got lots and lots of stuff that he's been doing on there. So lots and lots of problems for you to work on. And we'll be back next Sunday at 7 o'clock with more games. I'm not sure exactly what we'll be doing, but it'll be fun. And we enjoy doing them and taking your live questions and comments. So as we've been saying, let's keep the life and death on the go board, folks. Be careful out there, as Michael was saying at the beginning. Around the world, folks are starting to restart and get back. I don't think we can use the word normal, right, Michael? I think
That's not normal.
No. But it's good to be getting back out. But I think Michael and I are on the conservative side of this particular problem. I know I'm going to still be sticking close to home myself and continuing to be careful. And I urge all of you as well. As I just been seeing more and more folks in the States. We just hit 100,000 who have died. I think in Japan, you guys have been very fortunate. You have a very low number of fatalities,
it's a very low number. It's just sort of strange because the way the government handled it was not very popular. And they've not been doing the things that they were supposed to do according to the worldwide standards. So
Hmm.
it's sort of strange, but it worked out in Japan so far.
Well,
We'll see.
it's interesting too because I mean, in the States, a lot of our infections and fatalities have been in populated areas, and I mean, I can't. It's hard for me. I've been to Japan. I mean, you have a lot of people in a small amount of space, and I would have thought that would have made for a lot more fatalities. So y'all are doing something right, I guess.
We did something right, or we were lucky. One of the two. Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't really matter, right? Anyway, we're glad to see you, Michael, and glad to see that you're keeping well. Same to you folks out there. Keep watching, keep playing, and we will see you all next week. Thanks, as always, to Stephen Hu, our fabulous, fabulous producer. Couldn't do this without him. Nor, of course, we do it without the American Go Association, usgo.org. Check it out. It's a great organization to belong to, and they have lots and lots of cool stuff to check out as well. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next week. Take care.